David,
Yeah.
second.
Second.
Dennis, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Second item is adoption of the minutes of the April 16th APC meeting. Do I have a motion for adoption? Kirsty, second. Dennis, all in favor? We are unanimous. We have no public with us tonight. So I guess we'll move right into the new business. The first item, 4.1, being a re-referral. From council regarding, this is the Salal Road rezone.
Yeah, so both of these tonight are ones that came to you as part of initial referral before the bylaw council gave first reading. They came back. So Salal Road, there's not a whole lot of change here. So it's sort of if the APC has additional thoughts, but reminder, we're on Salal Road. This property here has applied to rezone so they can subdivide into 2 lots. As part of it, if you remember, they have a trail network throughout it, or a trail connection through it. So council supported that idea. The other recommendation we put in is that as condition of the rezoning, which could be part of subdivision, but it's part of rezoning, to environmental assessment of it to identify potential areas that actually could be covenanted. So that was part of when the RR3B rezoning went around Josephine Lake, they all had environmental covenants, and that was part of the sort of exchange. Was they could be smaller lots, but they're actually going to require environmental covenants. So we mark on this site, there's like a wetland down in the corner that I'm particularly sort of concerned about. So it's saying, can we get an environmental report done that would say you're going to divide it into 2, this is where the house would go, but actually there's areas that either would be parkland or be just protected as no build in exchange for the rezoning.
So it would not be a separate parcel though, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. We've done it both ways. We've done it separate parcel.
Right.
That would be parkland, or we've done it just
a
no-build covenant.
Because won't that impact the overall site areas if it's separate?
It would. There's enough land in that it's 2.5 hectares
Right
now, and the minimum lot size is 1 hectare for each.
Hi,
My apologies for being late.
Martin Ziegler.
Martin Piccolo.
This is Rose, the chair.
Martin,
I'm
welcome.
Steph, the committee clerk. Nice to meet you.
I'm Dennis Wilson,
He's the vice chair.
Nice to meet you, Dennis. Nice to meet you.
All right. Drew goes. Martin, nice to meet you, Martin.
Councillor Andrew.
Hey, apologies for the.
Nice to meet you, Martin.
Nice to meet you finally.
David Hawking. Daniel Martin is the planner.
Kirsty Johnstone.
Last though, sorry. Kirsty Johnson.
Don't come
The most important
Here comes
member.
she's sick. She's sickly.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Yeah, but hello.
So, we called the meeting to order just a few minutes ago, Martin, just to bring up to speed. And this is a rezoning application to create 2 parcels out of a single parcel out on Salal Road out by Josephine Lake, which was came to the APC last fall, I guess. Was it?
Like winter.
Winter?
And my notes it's sort of January, I think even.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I was asking about because there was a minimum parcel size requirement, and if a 3rd parcel were created
Yeah.
to sanctify the wetlands,
Yeah.
would that negatively impact the possibility of creating 2 1-hectare parcels?
None of it was. I mean, I think we have a half a hectare to play with.
Okay,
So an acre, and I wouldn't think it would be that much land. Like, in talking with Blani about it, so the parks manager, in terms of if there's a trail through it, maybe it connects to somewhere that's part of it. This maybe is just covenanted as well. We just say this is still the same trail covenant, and you can pass over, but it's restrictive. Or there's a restrictive covenant that just says they can't build on it, they can't cut down trees.
I don't think they would, it's pretty boggy.
Yeah.
So the bridge is going, or they'll have to do some kind of a walkway or something to get to across it.
Yeah. Yeah, down at the bottom. Yeah.
And that would be an easement as opposed to a dedication. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All in favor?
So there was some talk about them them building the trail.
Yeah.
Is that in here?
And that's what the APC, that's what we recommended last time,
Yeah.
and so that's part of
Okay,
what
that's all
council
in
in
there.
the report, yeah.
So they've agreed to that, haven't they?
Yeah.
And to the standards that were suggested, I think it was 3 meters
By
wide.
Parks and Trails
And
or?
the Parks Trails wanted wider than 3 meters, but not the trail, but the easement.
Oh,
So
right.
the Parks Trails was concerned about that, that enough of a swath was left that the trail through it would have buffering on each side.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
But the
three-
trail, I think you
3
said trail
meters is
fence
very
isn't-
wide. I mean, the
But it's
trail
not, it's
itself-
not a trail, it's not a trail that you'd want wider than a meter. It's hilly. So it's not like take your stroller out and ride your bike along it. It's not that kind of trail.
It's like
But
a.
it is wide enough where you walk with somebody down the trail, and if you've got only a meter, 3 feet, you can't walk side by side. It's too narrow. I mean,
So what's the easement gonna be? 3 meters?
I mean, the Parks Trail said wider than 3 meters.
Wider than 3
They
meters.
wanted,
so 10
because 3
feet.
meters is sort of our standard minimum, like we say
Yeah.
3 meter, and they were concerned that it'd be more than that. So I don't know, we haven't surveyed it yet, or sort of looked at what appropriate is, but it's
Yeah.
more than 3 meters.
But I don't even think it's one that you'd want to go side by side. I think it's not like a hiking trail. It's not, and it connects to a hiking trail, or hopefully a hiking trail in the Crown Land too. It's not
it won't
It's not gonna
go-
be like Crippen Park, it's not
No.
gonna be like a big wide, it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
no, because it's just not conducive to that. Like I think the beginning of it could be like that, but then you're gonna get into tree roots. If you wanted to do that, you're gonna be cutting down a ton of trees,
Yeah,
which I don't think we would want.
Yeah,
okay.
It's just, all roots
Yeah.
and.
yeah.
Okay, so Danny, you have 2 questions from the APC. One whether the APC supports the amendment bylaws. Do I hear any other comments about that? I think we have a motion on that. That the APC supports the amendment bylaws as presented. That's-
Kirsty,
That's,
she
And
made
that's
the motion.
enough.
That's enough, then, moved by Kirsty. Do I have a second?
And second.
Yes.
Yeah, second.
Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Other issue that council should consider as part of the zoning. Martin?
So not really understanding what the applicant's doing here, but have they provided a survey identifying the location of the easement?
No, not yet.
Okay, so is that something that will be required of them to provide as part of their?
Yeah, so as part of the rezoning, yeah, we would need the trail easement
And
document
then they
registered.
would document that
Yeah,
additional
yeah,
width.
yeah.
Does the municipality, you said that it's been done both ways, is there a preference, a separate parcel versus some kind of, something rigid, covenant registered on title?
And it kind of depends on even the end use. Like, there's some concerns with covenants where you put a covenant on and say, okay, you just can't build and it'll protect the environment, but then we never actually do. Like, if we don't enforce it, we don't follow up and do sort of checks. There's concern, okay, are we now?
Right. Is there also a wish for the municipality to have ownership over the trail network in a comprehensive way?
I mean, definitely for a trail easement, we would probably just take the easement rather than, because just for simplification,
Covenant
keep it
rather
through
than-
it rather than, but in terms of protecting, if there's like a wetland to be protected, we've done both in terms of we've taken little parks that are just sort of the bits we want to protect and we've just come into it.
because this one's next to Crown Land, so it's not like it's next to somebody else's
Yeah. Right.
property, so it's not gonna, like,
Yeah, good point.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My sense is that probably would be like, if they do environmental, and say, okay, this is a sensitive area, you shouldn't build here, you should build up here, and they'd pick a good spot, that it would be enough to cover the remainder and say, no build and maybe no clearing and whatever else. That would be appropriate.
No touchy.
Yeah.
David, you had a question?
Well, I was away for this, and so I didn't go up and actually see this property, so Chrissy just said it's adjacent, that was my question, it's adjacent to the Crown Land, so if you make it a park, it is adjacent to other lands that not a park, but it's close
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned there was a trail into the wetland, is that correct?
So the trail avoids the wetland for the most part. It connects to the crown land.
I see.
Yeah. And then it's sort of a separate piece. It's saying, okay, there's sort of a wetter area that maybe should be protected through the zone as well, for sure.
There's also a trail plan up that's shown on the trail map that would go up there. And that right now, that's not really.
So we have a trail easement that ends from Forest Ridge along this angle.
Oh, okay.
We've never developed it, and when you on the ground, this would be a better trail.
Oh, okay.
than this is not a good trail route. This is a good trail route. We also have a trail easement along here. On this property on number 5, that is not.
Trail.
Yeah, is not feasible. So that's why our OCP shows a trail cutting through here as a future trail route, and so that's why we flagged this as okay. We'd like a trail to connect to the ground for future. And this one's not really useful. This one, I think maybe you could do it, and so maybe that's something like if this route gets built, I would say, okay, gee, now we've got sort of motivation to connect it before it didn't connect a loop, and now we can say, okay, now you can get from Salal to Forest as part of a loop, and both can get to the ground. That's more useful.
So when they build their house in there, Daniel,
Yeah.
I don't know what the plans are, it's sort of around where that number 3 is, eh? It's gonna
Yeah.
be at the top end of the
Yeah.
property. Is the trail right down in front of the house, or is it further down?
I'm not quite sure how close
Yeah.
they relate, but yeah.
I think it was below, didn't we enter below, or did you go with us?
I didn't come with you that. No, I went before that. Yeah.
I went in, I think the trail is below it.
Yeah, because there's a road, like a
yeah.
road access.
Yeah.
And then the new house would be there,
Yeah,
and
there
then we
was-
went down and then,
Yeah, there was sort of a plateau there.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, okay.
obviously a building,
So
a
yeah.
future building site,
Yeah.
and then we went down
Yeah.
below with the trail.
Probably won't get used much until they connect it up to some other stuff. I mean, it's a trail to nowhere right now.
Yeah, but exactly. But at least
Start.
we've got something there
Yeah.
that we can connect into it wherever
Absolutely.
in the future. Okay.
I don't think the trails thing, whatever that new trail coalition thing is that I'm in, it has no, it's the bonus.
Sure,
You know,
I'm
it's
sure the
not
title will become
definitions.
clear over time.
Well, no, there's Betra, there's Bahora, and then and we had to change the name several times, which is why I have no clue what it is anymore. But there's no plans for doing anything on Crown Land up there at this point.
Right.
It's all about Mount Barker.
Okay.
At what point is the subdivision plan done? I guess that would be the
Following rezoning.
So the rezoning occurs first, so
Yeah.
it's purely conceptual.
Yeah.
So we don't know whether the property's divided, for instance, here or down here or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's some allocation of the land in that
Yeah.
area for
Yeah.
the wetland.
There's a little bit of flexibility because there's enough
Mhm.
land there
Yeah.
that they can make.
Yeah. There's wiggle room.
So you go ahead and rezone, and then you would, then he'd come in for a subdivision, and at that point, you'd get the trail
Yeah.
alignments and all that.
So we would do the trail alignment as a condition of rezoning. And we would say, if it goes forward to a public hearing, third reading, then we'd say it's a condition of adoption. We
Okay.
bring the covenants back, so the trail easement, and if there's any protective covenants or something, that comes at adoption.
Okay.
So council has it before they actually pass the bylaw.
Excellent. Okay.
So I'm not hearing any other issues really that we want to send some comments back to council. All right.
Maybe, so, just, I don't know if this is even an issue here, but is there any interference between setbacks and the trail dedication? Potentially.
Setbacks for the house, do you mean, or
Yeah, building
Yeah.
area, in the new zone.
Yeah. There's not, well, we don't have sort of setbacks from trails, but that's
But
part of the parts of
if it comes
trails,
through
we
it-
wanted to make sure that the trail itself is far enough away, like the trail easement and the physical trail has a buffer from the house in the property.
Yeah, because I asked because recently I had a project where, basically setbacks are taken from property line,
Yeah,
but the statutory right of way was going through, and we were building really close to it,
okay,
and we were allowed to do so.
yeah.
And it was kind of probably not the best
Pretty good
thing.
shape up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we have some trails definitely where you end up with the trail is there before, and then people build like right up to the edge of the,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the right of way, and then you're left with this trail that's sort of now walking beside houses and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's nice, and so that was the Parks and Trails concern, that's when they said we want a wider trail
Yeah,
easement.
so it may be a
Take
bit
it wider,
wider.
yeah.
But 9 meters isn't much. I mean, when you think of it, if you really want a buffer of any kind, but
Yeah,
I mean, I suppose they've decided that that's adequate.
yeah. I mean, I thought 3 meters is sort of standard, and maybe we want more than that. We want more to keep it far city, but then it becomes that, yeah, what's reasonable, if you say.
Okay.
Well, the house isn't gonna wanna be
But they're just
beside.
Yeah,
gonna do.
I know.
It's not, it's gonna be
Just
them that
3
have
meters.
the problem more than the trail people.
Yeah, on this one, it's probably not going to be an issue because of the condition of the land and the wet areas and stuff. But I would think I'm sorry, it was 3 meters
Yeah.
that they're talking about.
Yeah.
And 3 meters, boy, that's
Tiny.
not even,
That's probably from about here to the wall.
10 feet, that's about
and,
it.
and then you've got a trail in the middle of it, and
House.
you may have a scrubby
Yeah.
brush or tree here, and if you're lucky, and otherwise, that seems woefully inadequate. It seems like you ought to have something
But do
much
we have
more.
to have
and
trails
then
away from
just-
houses? Like, do they have to be buried in the woods? Or looking at houses, isn't that a nice thing to do, snoop them? No, really, like, I'm serious, like, why do you have to have the trail buried in the woods?
Nature
I
trails.
think it depends on the trail, like, so we have the trail, like, just out of here that goes up the stairs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's way a 3 meter right of way, and it goes up the stairs, and it's through Kate's Hill.
Yeah,
And you have the same trail, there's a couple more that cut through Kate's Hill like that are
Yeah.
like that, and that's fine, and the Kate's Hill
yeah.
Yeah,
environment, right? So it kind of depends, I think, on the trail.
yeah.
So if you want to go snooping, you should go use those trails. This one's
Yeah.
gonna be
But, well, you're gonna get into the woods really soon anyway, because it's private land. so
Yeah.
it's-
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Martin's point is a good one about the buffering in general. I don't know whether, are there any, is the municipality any policies around trails and buffers between trails and houses, or? No,
No.
I'm sure that's probably not high priority. Okay.
Topic for the new plan.
There we go, yeah.
So I'm still not hearing anything we need to send back to council, any comments? So, with no further ado, why don't we move on to the second item, which is 431 Bowen Island Trunk Road. And this is the Rodney Dyke proposal for floating homes.
So this one came to the APC in October, and it's, yeah, as Drew said, the Marina's proposal to build up to 6 floating buildings to do the application for staff housing. So it's in the WC1A zone, so it's a water commercial zone. It already allows a certain number of float homes, 2% of marina berths, up to 3 float houses. And float houses are a building containing 8 dwelling units, so we're talking about something that would allow multiple ones.
So this is sort of just
Yeah.
so there's already one in the marina,
There's already 3.
Great,
Yeah.
already 3.
Yeah.
And then there's the new one which is being built.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's being built purely speculatively within the status.
There's gonna be 6 of them.
No, I understand that.
But the one, yeah, the one in the parking lot would be an additional one above what
Right,
they're-
so it's being built speculatively because this has not been
Yep.
approved.
Yep. So just site context again, this is where they would go, is sort of where the dinghies are now, the 6 of them. So the amendment bylaw would create this new definition for a float duplex, up to 2 dwelling units in each, and a maximum of 6 of these buildings, 12 units in total. So when it came to the APC had recommended that the housing be regulated by a housing agreement, specifies the units are primarily staff housing and precludes the use of the short-term vacation rental. So talking with the applicant said they're unwilling to enter into a housing agreement, and that they wanted to make sure to maintain their option of commercial guest accommodation in the winter months when they feel like there could be demand and maybe not as much demand for staff housing. So the land use bylaw can't regulate rental rates or classes of persons, or can't regulate that it be staff housing or be for workers on board or anything like that. So currently how I drafted it initially, essentially based on what the applicant had asked for, is that commercial guest accommodation be permitted as a use in the buildings in the winter and not in the summer months. And so that's what council has given first reading to it. The council meeting, there was some discussion about affordable housing contribution. There's no housing agreement. Council's talked about contribution to the affordable housing fund or something like that. Viewing it more as essentially commercial units being built that may house staff or may be used for commercial purposes, and in that case we'd be looking for a contribution to the affordable housing fund. I'll say, speaking to Rondi after that meeting, I think there's maybe some flexibility on a housing agreement if that's a sticking point, that he's sort of unwilling to enter into more bureaucracy and more rules governing it, and not super willing, but if that was a sticking point, I think maybe I could talk him into something. So my questions, and then the second point that we had talked about, let's go into that one. So sewer treatment. So the applicant proposed the buildings have onboard sewer treatment, and then have the ability to be connected to pump out to land, but primarily be onboard sewer treatment. So so currently in the land use bylaw it says that the float homes and liveaboards need to be connected to the pump out system. The applicant's pointed to the BC float home standard, which says float homes shall have or be connected to an approved sewage disposal system, shall comply with the sewage system regulation and the municipal wastewater regulation. So after the council meeting, Rondi gave me stuff that said, okay, certified that it meets the sewage system regulation, municipal wastewater regulation, the system that they've put in.
I've never heard of the system that he's proposing.
There's a lot of it used down in Seattle
Yeah,
on those Lake Union.
so it's an onboard system,
Yeah,
Floating.
it's an,
purely
yeah.
self-contained.
That's what, anyway, that's what I understand, is that it's not, this isn't, never been tested.
Right,
This is,
okay.
So will there be a process? I mean, in your bylaw, I think it's in your bylaw, you
Yeah.
say that it will be,
you
it
gotta-
has to be approved by coastal health. So that, I mean,
Well, they'll definitely have to do that.
so they would.
Yeah.
I would suggest even more so. I mean, I think it would need to be engineered, and the onus would be on the applicant to provide an engineered proposal.
The system will have to be engineered, yeah, there's no
It is-
question.
it's
But in order
It's a
to-
plug and play,
Yeah,
the system.
Well, it's plug and play in a different country.
Yeah, so it have to
Canada
be
does have
BC
different
engineered.
regulations. You know,
Yeah, I don't know if it's used.
in some ways, it's more onerous in the United States. In the United States, if you have a watercraft, you have to have a holding tank,
Yeah.
but
You
in Canada, you
know,
don't.
too.
But, but I think we certainly can't make recommendations that are contrary to existing standards. I guess one question I would have is does the float home standard apply here, or what does apply?
I think it would be well served to have a professional opinion provided to
Right.
what needs to be done.
Right. I think the potential for a sort of mini disaster in the cove. So the other three that exist are all currently tied into the sewage
Yeah.
system. Was there any rationale or reason given for not tying the new ones into it? Is it not capable of handling more capacity?
Not that I'm aware of. I think it's more just, I don't know if it's cost with it, whether a pump out versus the onboard, or it's just a simpler system. I'm not entirely actually clear.
Do they have the capacity in the pipes there to add that?
Yeah.
I guess is the question. Yeah.
So I take it they have kitchenettes or kitchens.
Yeah, yeah.
Kitchenettes and
Yeah.
bathrooms.
Yeah.
The design appears to have changed since we saw it.
Yeah.
They are quite a bit bulkier than the proposal we saw.
How large
Is there an updated version of? what-
Yeah, there is.
So this one in the report is from March.
What
Right?
page is
March.
that on? Oh,
Right after page
Yeah.
21, isn't it?
Yeah.
40 by 14. So it's like a modular unit, basically.
So originally, there was a central common deck,
Yeah.
and now it's fully 2 stories through the whole.
Structure, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Which concerned me when I saw it being built, because they're going, it's quite a bit bulkier than what was originally
Looks really
proposed.
top heavy.
It's very tough.
We'll find out on June 5th.
What happens on June?
You're gonna float it. It's floating day.
I see.
Mm.
So, has any professional been involved in the design of these things, or we're just hoping it's gonna float
He's
on June
passed,
5th? Is that?
he's passed the information from their structural engineer. So they said, one, they did analysis on it showing flotation, and then 2, it's not included here. I think I have upstairs. He's giving me plans for what he's proposing for the second one will be slimmer.
Yeah. Lower, right?
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yeah. Get the CAG down a bit.
Because I mean, it's sort of, the municipality runs a risk here, because these are not, they're not under the purview of the building inspector
I know, yeah.
or the building code.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so safety, obviously, I think should be first and foremost in everybody's considerations here. Whether they'll float or not would be a big concern, and if they are unstable, that would be a concern also.
Yeah.
Is that the concept of joint and several liability shows up, and if the municipality is approving these in some form, then the municipality seems to be willing to accept some liability for potential failure of these units and the loss of life or injury.
So why not require building code compliance, this is part line for the,
So we do so the float one that went in, the one at the end, we required a building permit.
The one that's being constructed now?
The one that went in at the end, sorry, the one, the existing one.
I'm sorry?
The one that went in last year.
Hello.
Oh, right, okay.
And for their floating office, both of them, we've required building permits.
Right,
And we've inspected.
so they had a marine engineer or some
I
kind of,
think so. I don't remember the details. I just remember the step of requiring.
right,
Like that, yes, that's covered in our jurisdiction. We can require building permits for
okay.
floating buildings, the same as.
So, but obviously since the rezoning is not
Yeah,
in place, there's no building permit
Yeah.
for the unit that's being built, so there being no inspections.
yeah.
So this is all a bit of that cart before the horse kind of scenario
Yeah.
that we've seen quite a bit of lately on the island, which is to me quite concerning. It's kind of thumbing, the proponent is kind of thumbing their nose at the municipality and saying, I'm doing this anyway. And then dragging the municipality along in the process, and the municipality will by implication become liable if there's a problem. which seems to me a really slippery slope. So I'm not sure where the planning department, the building inspectors, and the municipalities stand on this, but I think this is quite challenging territory.
Well, I think there has to be some kind of a certification process here.
Yeah, but it can't be up to the factory. You can't see what's happened inside.
Well, no, we're not gonna let anybody live in there until this thing's certified.
So how's he gonna do that when it's already built?
Well,
can't say
I
that's
don't
in
think
the
it's
walls.
construction, I guess you can open up walls if you want to. But I think the biggest problem here is just the floatability of the thing, the stability is my greatest concern.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's become, when I say it's bulky, it's not just visually bulky, which is a
No.
concern, particularly at high tide, unless the photographs are taken at low tide,
Yeah.
which gives you the impression that they'll all be disappearing down below rock walls. But that the original scheme has been amended to add more bulk at the upper floor
Correct.
is not gonna make it more stable. It's gonna have the opposite effect.
Of course.
Well, if we can require that it's engineered by a marine or the appropriate
And since
professional,
it's
then.
not, yeah, since it's not clearly part of code, I'm
Yeah.
not really familiar with building structures, but if it's not that, then it's not part 9, and then an assurance letter may be required.
Well, if there's any question about that, something has to happen in there somewhere.
So just.
He can't just throw these things on the water and we can't put people in them. I don't know how it becomes a jurisdiction problem, I think. He seems to think he can put an outboard on the back and turn it into a boat.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
Yeah, so, in which case, then he doesn't need any certification. Perhaps, it's a whole different area.
Yeah, and it's a third-party liability issue too. I mean, whether it's staff or whether they're commercial and their guest accommodation,
Yeah,
at some level, is immaterial.
absolutely.
There's a potential threat to life safety here.
Correct.
That there's absolutely no oversight.
Yeah,
And the municipality seems to be going along with this. That's my impression. I mean, I don't know where we are with this, but
well, maybe these are early days, but like you say, we're not seeing any of the framing, we're not seeing anything.
right.
As it's going on, the electrical, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. And I don't know what the legality is.
Right.
I think
Do we have jurisdiction over it? Or not?
Yeah, yes. So
Okay,
we have jurisdiction, was it 300 meters
yeah,
offshore, right? So our zoning covers it, our building bylaw would cover it.
And you were able to and did require building permits for the other
Yeah.
units.
Yeah.
And the ownership hasn't changed, so
Yeah.
that doesn't understand.
so why haven't we put a stop work order on it? There's gotta be a reason.
Yeah, so essentially it's that, like, we would allow mobile things to be built
Mhm.
that aren't being occupied. So if you can build a tiny home on your property,
Oh, I see, okay.
right? And you can build it there. You can't occupy it, you can't use it. But you can build it and take it somewhere where they allow you to occupy a tiny home. So on the same thing, you can build and you could float it to
Mhm.
wherever, Lions Bay, I don't know, like somewhere outside of our jurisdiction that's never been used or occupied.
Okay, well, that's good. So what now is the process to get somebody to occupy that? Allow somebody to occupy?
Zoning, building permit.
Yeah, my guess is that the construction standard for something like that would follow more of a motor home or trailer type of building
That is a
construction as
CSA,
opposed to a
Z240 or
regular.
Z241, but that's a factory rating, and the factory achieves the rating.
Yeah.
So, and the factory is inspected by inspectors on a regular basis. So they have the right, so they're able to put their seal on that mobile home or non-mobile home. So the CSA Z240 or 241 wouldn't apply to this because there's no factory. This is a one-off custom built of something which appears to have no engineering, or some limited engineering. A structural engineer is gonna say, well, you know, okay, it's not gonna fail, but structural engineers are not trained in watercraft.
Yeah.
So the whole,
It
all
could be a
becomes-
specialty, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we need to know exactly where the jurisdiction of, watercraft standards ends.
Well, there's tons of houseboats being built
Yeah,
in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So there's gotta be,
Gotta be
they're
standard.
they're in Westminster, they're in Ladner, they're
oh
everywhere.
yeah, absolutely.
So there must be somebody that can
certified.
certify them.
Okay,
Right.
So-
very simply, Dennis Dallas built his. What happened, was that situation? He's living in it,
Yeah. He got a building permit,
okay?
Conrad inspected it,
Okay,
inspected plans, inspected construction,
yeah.
signed off. I don't know offhand what
Have we talked to,
we require.
has there been a conversation with Greg about what's gonna happen there?
Um,
New building?
more concerned with the fact that now, as it gets closed, right, he's not, so one, it's like, where does it fall under building code, right? And there can be an issue with building inspector, or whatever.
Have you or the building department contacted someplace like Ladner or someplace where they're floating homes, probably like floating home villages,
Yeah.
to understand how they deal with that?
No, not yet.
Because there's, the
I
Mosquito
would
Creek, there's a
recommend
zillion
a
of them there.
first
Yeah.
course of action to find out how others are dealing
Yeah.
with floating residences to begin with.
Yeah.
See what kind of standards they're applying to them.
And
Because
then-
this really appears to have kind of run away with itself. And it's fine to say, well, yeah, he can build it there on his property and put it in the water and take it to Desolation Sound. But if it doesn't go to Desolation Sound, where does
Yeah.
where does it all fall? If it stays in Snapcot.
So North Van or Ladner or New West, they all have floating home marinas.
Yeah.
Just find out what they do.
What are the conversations been with Ron? Does anybody say, whoa, we have to look at this thing? And he just says, as Ronnie would.
Yeah, I mean, he's been open to having a building permit for it
Yeah,
and applying for it, and then we say, well, the issue is you don't have zone, like, we can't give you a building permit, we don't have zoning for it.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can inspect it. I mean, it could be inspected while it's being constructed, and then you can apply for the permit as long as.
no, you have to have zoning though first.
Yeah,
You mean to just
Put it in.
have a building inspector go out and look at it?
Yeah,
Because it's, well, I
It's
guess
just
it's
part of the
applied,
process.
Yeah, it's.
Well,
you can, unless he applies for a building permit.
Then the building inspector becomes complicit in some illegal act, because he can't legally build it if it's going to remain there. First of all, he's got to have the rezoning in place before he can get a building permit.
yes.
And then he gets a building permit, and then he gets inspections. If the building inspector starts going out and inspecting a building which is being built illegally and effectively condones that construction, that's a pretty tricky place to be.
Well,
It's important.
I think there should be a way around that.
I know what you're saying, but
But because.
there's a process. There's a process and it's not being followed. And I think somebody has to change things here
Yeah.
quickly before he goes down too far. And it costs him a crap load of money.
We have to remember that there are multiple suites in these.
Mhm.
So there's a fire separation issue. I'm looking at this detail here that probably doesn't even comply with code. So code compliance would be a wise requirement, I think,
Yeah.
of this. At least anything above the floating platform, the building.
Yeah, it is more complex than the homes that are being built in
Yeah.
Ladner, which are single-family dwellings in effect, and would be covered under Part 9. Here you're getting into multiple occupancy, and as Martin says, you need fire separations between the suites that have to meet a certain criteria. And if the builder is not conversant with the code, then it's quite possible that's not happening. And once the drywall is painted, even before it's painted, it's hard to tell what it is.
Well, I guess all we can do is recommend that the buildings receive building permit approval.
In compliance with British Columbia Building Code, I guess.
Or do we say that, or do we say?
I'd just say building permit approval,
Yeah.
because there may be some special conditions for these kinds of
Yeah.
buildings, and I don't,
So
I
find
wouldn't
out
wanna
from those other
include that.
municipalities what they require, and then we'll do the same.
It said, these aren't really questions that Daniel was asking us, although I think they're good questions.
Yeah.
Maybe we should consider Daniel's questions, and in light of those, decide whether we want to respond to the questions or not. I raised the concern, and I think pretty shared by others, that while this is an application for a rezoning, there's a de facto piece of construction going on that is directly in contravention of, or appears that it could be in contravention of this request.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with the rezoning,
Well,
but
then
we
we
do have a
talked
problem with
about
that. Yeah, that's just the rationale for the float home standard.
so I guess number one, do we support allowance of up to 6 floating homes to be 12 units? I would say we do.
Provided they meet the appropriate standards,
well,
safety and
safety.
health and.
Yeah,
So I have one concern about that, because we saw one set of drawings which depicted a duplex type of unit, which was relatively low profile and which had quite a bit less living space in it than what is being constructed or what is depicted in these drawings. I don't think I want to see 6 of those monsters tonight.
You won't see 6 of them. The next ones are quite a bit smaller, they're back to the original. But you can say that.
Well, I don't see any, there's not a particular commitment one way or the other, really.
It's just making them smaller, I mean, part of the deal is because of the stability. But anyway, that's not.
I just Googled it, the British Columbia Float Home Standard, which actually seems to be speaking to
that's
many of
what's-
these issues.
That's what he's referenced here.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of it here. It's an interesting read, for sure.
But who has jurisdiction over or ensures that the BC float home standard is being upheld? And does it go to
Well,
the
I mean,
extent
it's
of?
kind of a funny one because it's on page 61 of your package. Like some of the stuff that it talks about is more for places where float homes are built, almost where there is no, maybe they're in a regional district, or maybe they're actually, I guess they're being a regional district, they're outside of municipalities. They're concerned about, like, if you're building it in a lake, how does it connect to the shore?
Right.
How is it anchored, or so some of it is sort of stuff that doesn't apply in this case, because we say, well, or in municipalities where their jurisdiction ends at the shoreline, and then the float home goes in, and you go, well, what do we do now? How does that interface work?
Like that, I don't know how the Granville Island float homes work. Are they under the jurisdiction of the city of Vancouver and the Vancouver Charter, or?
Granville Island's federal.
Yeah,
Right,
because it's
that's right.
federal, so I have no idea how they. Whereas there's float homes in Cole Harbour as well, so there'd be. I would imagine there's covered. City of Vancouver covers
All right.
offshore, but I don't know.
So there's reference to authority having jurisdiction being the local building code enforcement authority for this, the float home standard.
Who's
So
that?
so the
Under the
code-
definitions.
the code is cross-referenced to the standard then?
They mention it, yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, it needs a more careful read than that, but.
Is this did you put the entire standard here?
I think so.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's in there.
yeah, it says,
It's quite good, it's a good read.
yeah. The authority having jurisdiction is the governmental body responsible for the enforcement of any part of the BC code or official or agency designated by that body to exercise such authority.
So in here, I mean, it talks about float homes, superstructures, interior living areas designed and built in accordance with Part 9 with the following exemptions. So they talk about stairways. fastenings and stuff, but in general, it says part 9, it talks about the flotation device designed according to accepted marine engineering naval architecture principles, approved and sealed by a professional engineer qualified in such design.
So we don't have that, or we do have that?
Well, I mean, I would imagine as we review a building permit application, we would be turning to these as well. Our OCP references these standards as well in terms of.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering
But
if he provided one,
Oh,
marine engineering or not.
I don't think so.
he has provided some information as part of a future building permit application. I don't know offhand, we don't have zoning yet, do the zoning and then think about a building permit.
So they note, in order to regulate floating homes, the municipality must obtain the right to do so through an agreement with the province or federal government.
So I'd say that's our letters patent. They give us jurisdiction to 300 meters offshore
Okay.
to regulate, and so as part of that, we regulate buildings and structures. Yeah.
But then they go on to say, in the past, governing agencies have been reluctant to give authority to municipalities unless they were aware of the regulations that would be enforced, because there were no recognized standards before this document was developed. With this standard, municipalities can enter into the agreement.
Yeah, it's all clear. It
really is.
references building code, part 9 of the
Yeah.
building code as being the standard for the superstructure above the flotation device. So the applicant.
So it seems pretty,
They reference this. Yeah. And I guess our OCP references it as well. When it talks about float homes, it says follow these standards.
without having read the whole thing, but it would seem to imply that there's a reliance of the BC float home standard on application of BC building code to floating structures. So the construction must comply with BC building code.
Yeah.
And in this case, while it's still a Part 9 building, it is a duplex dwelling which would have additional fire safety regulations over and above.
Well, that's all covered in part 9.
Right,
Yeah, so.
exactly. So, but having said that, it's under construction without any overview, any oversight,
Yeah.
which creates a challenge. And I understand that there's a wish for, on his part, to have accommodation for his staff, and, summer's coming on pretty quick. However,
Have they made an application for a permit?
no, they can't.
Have
They
to
they need the rezoning first.
He has submitted an application, but he hasn't accepted it because he doesn't have
Submitted an application for a building
for a
permit.
building permit. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because we can't issue a building permit if we don't have.
Zoning.
So what are your questions on the rezoning?
Yeah. So, questions kind of came back to when we came in October. APC had said, regulate by a housing agreement, specifies their staff housing precludes use of short-term vacation rentals. So the zoning, as it currently does, says in the winter it could be used as short-term vacation rentals. So it was, how does the APC feel about that, and the need for a housing agreement or something on title that says they're used as staff housing, or they're used as housing for workers on bond, or.
Well, that was the sort of excitement that we had about getting worker housing
Yeah.
here. And worker housing is not an issue just in the summer. And that's the big problem. So,
We did ask him if, we understood that it would be, empty for the other half of the year, and so we asked him, is there some way of using it for the other businesses who have people who work all year? And the point that he raised is, well, then I just have to, how do I toss people out? Because, once we get into the summer, we need his own. So that's why we then said, well, we want to make sure that at least it doesn't all turn into, Airbnb.
Yeah.
and be more,
Yeah.
and make more money for them.
Cash cow, yeah.
But if he, yeah, if he, I think that that makes sense, because the rental agreement would not allow him to boot people
Right.
out, so.
So what we have instead is within your bylaw, you have those months
Yeah.
that it
Yeah,
can be.
you can be short term,
Yeah.
which is gonna be worker, like hydro and all of those
Yeah.
people come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's outside of the summer season.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
What do we say, October to,
It's in the bylaw.
yeah.
I mean, another way to look at it, I don't know if we have the ability to impose CACs on this for any lift and through rezoning.
So-
If there's a profit in the off-season.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do in the sense, one thing council raises, we have an affordable housing policy that says 15% of units added through rezoning will be affordable housing or a cash in lieu contribution. So council said, well, okay, fine, if they're not gonna be, if it's not gonna have a housing agreement, they're not guaranteed to be staff housing, then we just view it as, essentially, it's a, is that a commercial unit rezoning, and is there a cash contribution instead?
How is that calculated here? Is that based on,
Mhm.
well, City of Vancouver.
Yeah.
Whatever the traffic will
The
bear.
lift, right? Okay. But if there's a value lift rezoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, normally the municipality will take most of that lift.
Normally.
Yeah.
I mean,
City of Vancouver.
Doesn't happen much
it's
around
been-
here.
Yeah, it's been very much,
Things may need to change.
ad hoc.
Yes, they should.
Yeah.
So there's nothing set in stone, let's put it that
Yeah.
way. For sure.
So, the first question is a simple question. Does the APC support the allowance for up to 6 floating buildings containing up to 12 units at the marina? I think that's six more, I guess, is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy with that, except I'm concerned that we're not seeing the buildings that were presented to us 6 months ago.
So I think we can restate our support and add concerns regarding any number of things.
Right.
Because I think there's conceptual support amongst the commissioners having additional housing in the form of floating homes. It seems like not a bad notion. In fact, it even seems like a good notion.
Yeah.
So, but what are the, leaving aside who's going to be in them, and just staying focused on these 6 floating buildings, 12 units, what concerns do the commissioners have?
So I've heard desire it meets essentially the BC float home standard, I could say.
That would be essential.
Yeah.
Safety and the sewage factory meets Canadian
Yeah.
standards. So that's
What's right?
the
Safety and sewage.
sewage.
So I think that we're going to deal with that as a separate question.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
'Cause I have concerns about the visual impact as well.
Oh,
yeah, that doesn't worry me.
Well, one of them's pretty big. 6 of them will be 6 times as big. And at high tide, you won't be able to see the marina from anywhere on level ground down there. Because it will just be a wall of floating homes.
That's not what me.
I like boats personally, but
yeah.
that may be personal.
So that's all, it's only from the ferry line up, his parking lot. Everywhere else you're gonna see boats because you're gonna be looking at it from
An angle.
an angle. And from, the ferry people arriving are gonna see the marina, the park looks at the marina, the restaurants look at the marina, so it's just the parking lot and the ferry line up.
Okay, well, maybe I want to state a different way then. Because what's happened is these went from having a loft in them to basically having a second
Second
story.
story, yeah.
They had a loft and a
Yeah.
sun deck, and now they have a full second story. So, I don't know what
Well, he had said he didn't want, wasn't able to do a second story because of the stability. So now that he's done that, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's had a marine engineer say that it's okay. I don't know, you know, like it's a question of why he said one thing and then he felt something else, because I would imagine that.
I was led to believe that he didn't think there was any regulations for floating homes, and when somebody showed him this, I don't know, what would you, Daniel, has he been aware of this since day one?
He brought this, like when he first came, like
Yeah.
he had his original plans.
Yeah.
And I know he talked to Conrad about them, and one of Conrad's concerns was the ladders, that it wasn't meeting part 9. So Ron actually came with the standard to say, well, in the standard, right, it can be different.
But he's got little stairs now, not a ladder, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're different, yeah, so I think they're less
It's-
steep than you
Yes.
originally supposed.
He's
but-
calling it a loft, but it's really
A bedroom.
completely a full floor over
Yeah.
the lower
Yeah,
floor.
bedroom and bathroom.
And the bathroom, yeah, the bathroom's
Yeah.
there.
Which makes it, sort of more appealing for
Okay.
the tenants.
It's actually more livable.
Yeah.
And
Daniel, you wouldn't have the original plans he had that we looked at originally.
in
So,
five-
And
I'll
handy.
electronically, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to make it work.
Do you want me to print something?
Can I just say something? Because reading through this, I think the first step that the municipality has to take, and that's stated in the standard, is that municipality has to enter into agreement with the province in order to be able to enforce the standard.
No, I think we are in that
Are we in
agreement, because I think it was our
Okay.
it's our
Yeah.
300 meters.
Yeah,
that we
that's
have.
my, our letter's patent essentially.
Letter.
Okay.
Agree, to say that we have jurisdiction.
Well then, yeah,
for
so
the
then,
service. Yeah.
So, but that's a two-way street, if I understand it correctly. So then, if you were saying that you de facto have jurisdiction, then you must also,
Assume liability.
Right.
you must also use the standard.
Yes.
You can't say,
Oh,
we're not
absolutely.
going to apply that standard.
There's absolutely no question he has to use the standard.
Yeah.
this is not
Right.
law.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, and then there's a certain number of things that go with that, including building code compliance and other
Yeah.
things, right? So, so I think that the answer to the first question is that the APC supports the allowance of 6 additional floating buildings containing a maximum of 12 units at the marina, and has the following comments and concerns. One, that the construction, that the future construction, should the rezoning be successful, must include application for a building permit and compliance with the float home standards of BC. This includes compliance with the BC building, current version of the BC building code.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's already covered in here, actually, anyway.
Yeah, by implication, but I think there's misstated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'll leave aside my concerns about, so a lot of things didn't get handled. So concerns about the safety of the units, the structural integrity and so on. The building inspector can say, well, I want a marine engineer
Yeah,
on,
absolutely.
to provide certification of these units, as well as a structural
Yeah.
engineer. You know, it's too small to require an architect, but compliance with the code would imply that there must be appropriate fire separations, there needs to be all of those things. The challenge with this kind of thing, and I just saw it a little bit in the standards, is that there's being able to get safety response people to the units is somewhat of a challenge. Getting ambulance people, getting firefighters to these units becomes, it's a bigger challenge than it is in the land.
The
And I
same
don't-
as a boat,
I'm sorry?
the same as a boat,
Yeah, exactly.
That's in the float homestead, too.
yeah.
that's one reason why they're,
Mhm.
why the standard at the current place.
Yeah.
But, so, well, apart from compliance with the float home standards, is there anything else that, regarding the general concept of these things? That
Oh,
you're
I
concerned with?
agree that they're too high. You got 5.5 meters there, which is what, 17 feet?
I was wondering if we should be considering a limit on unit size or the unit height
Well,
or.
that's why I wanted him to get, if he can access the old ones.
Yeah,
If you could, Daniel, is that a big hassle? Does anybody want to see this?
yeah, yeah.
No,
These are
Because they were quite a bit smaller.
they were, but
Oh,
then
yeah.
I guess if you can't, you
But
have
they
more
were
ladder,
probably
then
still
you-
17 feet 9 inches from the water to the top,
Yeah.
but carved
But
out.
then it was, yeah.
Oh, they still were 17.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll
At
find
the
out.
front, because it was standing, like, I think there was a high part and then it went down, so there was,
Yeah.
it was just like 3 feet or something at the back, but then you can't do a bathroom upstairs if that's the case.
It's gonna be really, it's 7 feet 8 inches floor to floor.
So, you know,
So that's 7-foot ceilings, basically.
Yeah,
Wow.
Okay. I mean, one of the concerns we raised last time was that the upstairs had such a low ceiling that, you'd be banging your head all the
yeah,
time.
it still does. It's
Storage in
still
it.
6
And of
feet
course,
under.
there was no bedrooms in the old one. So the idea was that they're gonna be sleeping in the loft upstairs.
Yeah, well, it needs to comply with code, so that's kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right on.
Yeah, I don't, it's an interesting point, because the building code stipulates
Yeah.
minimum floor and ceiling height, so, they may not comply. Because the living spaces, it's difficult to know from the drawings or, what the structure is, but if those TJIs are, I don't know, 12 inches,
I don't think they'd be that hefty.
I would doubt it, because they span quite a ways. But let's say they're 8 inches,
Yeah.
you've got probably less than a 7-foot ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't think the code will permit that. Would be 2,
6'6" is code.
Yeah. 6.5
6 foot,
6.5, yeah.
yeah.
So it does comply. It's,
I don't know, yeah, it's sort of like, if you compare it to living in a house with tall ceilings, that's not very nice. If you compare it to living in a boat, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's a palace.
It's fantastic, 'cause they,
It's spacious.
yeah.
to me, personally, just looking at this, I'm sorry if I'm going off tangent here, but I'm thinking housing and housing issues, and especially given that my modular project was struck down by Maple Ridge Council last night. Yeah. Doing something where we would perhaps require the proponent here to provide in the off-season some affordable housing to those that need it that time of year, and then they could use the rest for whatever profit they want.
Yeah.
Well, how does that fit in with the rental rate, the
So
rental
there's-
code?
Not sure.
Which is the, like,
you
why
see
nobody
that
ever
fire
wants to
escape? That's
rent
just
it,
another
because
route
you
to-
can't boot anyone
Here's
out.
These are eight.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so.
There are three questions, and I'd like to kind of separate the 3 questions out.
Is there a height on
together.
that?
Scale
The first question is about the general concept, the second question is about the use, and the third question is about wastewater treatment.
Right.
So we have proposed, so it's asking for, if there's anything you wanted to add to that particular motion. There is a motion on the table at the moment regarding the general concept.
There is a motion?
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we passed that.
No?
No, I haven't voted.
vote on it.
Okay.
At the moment, it says,
The advisory planning commission supports the allowance for up to 6 floating buildings containing up to 12 units with the following recommendation. That future.
should say, sorry, should say 6 more.
No, not,
Yeah,
Oh,
because there are 3
6
are-
additional.
are already
6
included.
additional, yeah.
6 additional? Yeah, sorry.
That's great. That additional is better. that future construction, should the rezoning be successful, include application for a building permit and compliance with the BC flood home standards, including compliance with the current version of the BC building code.
Do you want to add anything more to that? Because the other two questions are about use and about septic systems, so.
Septic,
if-
okay,
So
septic's
if there's
covered.
any concern about size,
Yes,
volume,
it has to go into
area,
this
it
motion.
should go in this one.
Right. Well, we just had a look at the old diagram, the old drawing, and it is completely different.
Right,
Like visually, it will be
Oh, good.
yes,
Thanks, Sarah.
a complete different ball of wax.
exactly.
It's six.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, look at that. This is a wall, and that's
Right. Which one, yeah, one,
Mark?
I remember, that's when I saw them being built.
Oh, thanks.
Oh.
I mean, that's just, it's just completely different from what we looked at and approved.
So he's got 13,
What do we got?
13 plus 2 8 over the water, so
So
13
it's,
is
so they're also,
17 feet. But the
drawing, the current version, drawing number 6, indicates
Yeah.
the water to top of building height 17 feet 9 inches.
Yes.
And the original ones were 15 feet 2 inches. So it's increased in height by, over 2.5 feet.
Wow.
16.4 I got on that. On the original?
A floor plan. Sorry about that. But just to look at it.
16.2.
16.2.
See if that actually.
So 16.2 to 17.9, so
So a foot and a half.
foot and a half.
I certainly
But
think.
it's the way it's cut up
It's
here, it's
also-
a slope roof.
Yeah, it's a slope roof.
You could actually take it if you would, like
That's
a normal measurement
At the mid.
at the
right.
midpoint, and it would be.
But way
The
over.
other thing too is that with that band and so on, I mean, it really, the upper portion doesn't look like a story. It
No.
looks like-
Right.
Particularly this person who's fishing here is actually to scale. So,
It sort of seems more reasonable to have a not joint deck, because that snug coat gets just stinking hot in the summer and there's no wind. And to have the windows, like the way it is now with the deck going either side, is a much more reasonable.
this had end decks also.
Is it upstairs?
No.
No, this
Lower
is.
floor.
With
The
downstairs.
the living room opened out onto a
Yeah.
small deck at each.
Yeah, downstairs, yeah, and that's still there.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't have a issue with it being a two-story. Seems like a more efficient plan, more living space, decent living suites.
Yeah, and a couple could actually
Yeah.
stay there versus the other one, it really precluded. Unless you were signing something.
I mean, I agree that from a living perspective, there's no question that this is a nicer house. But from the, visually, this is when you've got 6 of these in a line, basically it's a huge fence, a huge wall.
Right.
Whereas this isn't. This is really quite different. Visually, it's really quite different. So I think we're getting a different proposal.
I wouldn't mind allowing this old one to go up higher with the sloped roof,
Right.
and make up that difference. Or if they
Or do
can
we
do
just say that we'd like to have a different roof pattern in the various float homes, so that it's not, doesn't just all look like a box, and then he can, so that we would like a staggered
That's
look,
that's a good idea.
a la, the one that he originally
Yeah.
proposed or something, so
Yeah.
that it isn't flat topped all.
Yeah, the new one is just a big box with some balconies put on the ends. That is gonna be a wall.
It is flanked by the parking lot, which is kind of a, not the most attractive buffer anyway.
Yeah.
And it really
So
is.
it's hidden
just the-
behind that.
It's hidden behind that, and it really just is
A low
those
tide.
people in lineup that are gonna be looking at it.
And I guess on balance, though, I would go with livability for
Yeah.
the long term for the
Yeah.
people who will live there. You know,
But maybe a suggestion that he has, considers, is that a word that we can use, considers variation in roof,
Color, materiality,
Or-
Yeah,
form.
the advisory plan commission is not really in a position to
Say
be
that.
commenting on design. I think we could provide commentary on area or height if that were a concern. Perhaps even volume, I don't know, then if we want to.
Yeah, I mean, right now with the bylaw, I think I just copied over what we currently allow for float homes. So it's 5.5 meters and it's a certain floor area.
5.5 meters is the maximum allowable height for a float home,
Yeah.
which is
17 feet.
17 feet, 9.5 inches.
Probably exactly.
Cheating.
Yeah, so they're within that, right?
Will this also go before
18
the
feet.
design
18
panel?
Yeah.
It will go to the design
Yeah.
panel?
Yeah.
So that's where the,
Then it can say variation. But I think if this is one of the first, or the first purpose-built housing for employees on Bowen,
Yeah.
and we should, I hope that we can make it so that they're nice-ish to live in. They don't need to be fancy, but that they are, or they're, I'll just say the word livable.
yeah, I was gonna say livable, I agree.
yeah.
It's just not question, it's
Because,
just more livable than yours, short-term livable. Yeah.
yeah,
So along those lines of thought, I mean, I think what he's proposing now is better than
Yes.
what's before.
And there are other ways to visually lower the height of the building. In the original scheme, he has some vertical siding running up to the
Yeah.
loft level and changing to horizontal
Yeah.
siding, and that actually helps to,
Yeah.
you know.
Broaden it.
But again, it's a design approach and not, so, I mean, I have concerns about the volume, but we've already got a bylaw in place that effectively would allow him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the APC could say, well, we allowed him 3 homes that were this big, but if you're gonna have more floating buildings, they should be smaller, right?
Right.
That would be.
You could disperse and you could do one of each, eh? But we haven't even seen his new plan for his new one, which apparently he has the plans for now. You haven't seen them yet.
So,
I've seen them, and yeah, they sort of cut.
Oh, cut the edges off so it doesn't look like so much of a box, eh?
Yeah, but again, it's sort of, he's shown me this plan for his future ones, but again, there's nothing. He could change it in a month, right? And
Yeah.
he could say, oh, the next
Yeah.
one's gonna look, it's
Right.
gonna, whatever. Yeah.
well, he's gonna have to get that approved with the building permit anyway, once he gets the rezoning, so.
Yeah.
so these units are roughly 13
No.
feet by 16 feet in the main floor,
Well,
and similar on the upper floor.
design will have to be approved by.
13 by, what's 13 by 16 feet is?
I think I'm seeing 20 by 14.
Yeah, that includes the deck. If
What do
you-
you mean?
if you're drawing number 1 shows a breakdown, so there's a 3-foot deck and then there's wall thicknesses. So, no, so it's actually, so it's 12, 2, 5, 3, 17,
17 by 14.
so it's 16 feet,
Oh,
probably by 13 feet. Yeah. Which is 60, a little over 200 square feet per floor, it's not bad.
On the drawing one, it says 201 for the living area and 154.
Oh,
The upstairs.
Yeah, that's reasonable. BC Housing, units are, for a single person are 450, so.
right.
450, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not hearing any other concerns that we can,
I was just looking at what this building will look like at high tide, so I measured on my pencil the side of the building, and I moved it up to high tide. It's a big building.
oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
above the tree.
It's above the nice little tree that we have here.
Whatever
So-
tree that is, yeah.
Which is obviously to scale.
Yeah, that's
Was
right.
a site plan provided as well? There was some kind of a site plan.
He
So
had
it's
provided
to
initially,
scale?
yeah, he provided initially
Right.
more just like, this is where they'll go, so I got the initial, and I don't think I included it, because it's sort of,
I'm only wondering now, so the intent is to have them in that one channel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Between the riprap
Correct.
wall
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
first flow.
Yeah.
And when all 6 are built, will they completely fill that
Yes.
waterway?
So what he had shown, I have here, and I'm sorry I didn't send it, this was with this earlier one, is showing 6 with essentially 2, so he's showing 6 along here with essentially 2 areas still left for dinghies.
Oh, right.
But it says varies, so.
Varies, yeah. 1 dinghy or 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So potentially it's pretty
It's pretty tight.
solid
Yeah.
wall,
Yeah.
pretty tight.
Akin to Granville Island, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, floating home villages are tight little communities.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
So, it's on the north side of the marina, so the impact won't, it won't impact, there won't be a shading impact on the boats.
And actually, it's the gap is about 3/4 the length of one of the units. So, I mean, you are going to get a little bit of penetration of view.
Between them.
Maybe it's teasing to see some,
Yeah.
but it's a whole lot better than just sort of lining them up and
Yeah.
It's sort of
sticking them
interesting,
together.
going to Kirsty's earlier comment, so when you imagine them being end to end, then having the balconies on the ends, once you have 2 units, it's
They're
the
big.
equivalent of having them in the middle of
Yeah.
the unit anyway. Because the
Yeah.
2 balconies are.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Oh, I thought you were waving at
Oh.
me.
Mosquitoes are out.
It's just you.
Okay, well, I think this particular motion is probably, on this point, is probably, can we have that again, Steph?
The preamble about float homes is in the report, that future construction, should the rezoning be successful, will include application for a building permit and compliance with the BC float home standards, including compliance with the current version of the BC building code.
I would suggest, in reference to the sewage issue.
I'd like to treat that separately.
Okay, because it is covered in the standard.
Yeah, we can do that again. I think, let's answer Daniel's questions as they're arisen. Do I, any other comments on this?
Just right at the beginning there, in the future,
Mhm.
should we say in the future or
That future
No.
construction?
that
Oh,
future construction? I mean, we have to cover this
We'll
one
just put
too.
construction.
That all construction
Or
or
construction.
construction, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
At all construction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That construction period.
construction, just
That's
construction.
right.
Yeah.
But it says that construction, should the rezoning be successful, it says something like that, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
And then I'm not mentioning your bylaw amendments in this, I don't know, do you want me to slide something like that in? Like what we,
No, it's fine.
okay,
Yeah.
So,
again?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Did we have a second?
do I have a mover on that?
Oh,
Kirsty, second.
I'll second.
David, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, we are unanimous on that point. So point number 2 is regarding the use. Does the APC support the use of floating buildings as commercial guest accommodation through the winter?
I don't know, I can't think of a much better alternative. You know, and since this is the first one, let's see how it works.
Yeah, I would guess that in other seasonal, business areas, that they must have like the same issues, and then they don't want them to sit vacant in the winter, and if there's the fishing camp isn't busy, that somebody wants to live there, then it's commercial guest or whatever, like it's,
That's a way to avoid the tenant laws.
yeah,
And so it could,
Right.
and I think that's okay.
I think that's, yeah.
Because we don't want to have somebody move in and then not be able to get rid of them, and then
Right.
the point of the seasonal workers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, implicit in all of this is the belief that it indeed is housing for workers.
Correct.
So we are
Right. I mean, it's in the bylaw.
we are potentially naively saying, oh, well, of course it's going to be workers living in.
But it's in the bylaw.
It's in the bylaw, but how would that be enforced? I mean,
How
are
would
we
that
gonna
be
go in,
enforced?
excuse me, knock on the door, do you work for Romney, or
Right.
what?
I think it's easy enough to check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you have to do is phone them up and ask them if they're for rent.
So it's not, David, sorry, there's nothing in the bylaw that says, it's not working, not housing for staff, just that it be housing.
Oh, is that
For
right?
workers?
Yeah, so that's what we talk about, like, a housing agreement could regulate that, we could, as a condition of.
But we don't care if it's for restaurant workers or
Hydro workers.
hydro workers or garden care
We
workers.
just don't want it to be a
We just don't
B&B.
want it to
right.
be a B&B, isn't
It
that?
just says it may be used for commercial guest accommodation for the months of October, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It doesn't say
Yeah,
what's happening in the summer.
the rest of the time, it's a dwelling unit, so it's,
Oh.
which is,
Oh.
right,
It
and
could be
so,
anything.
I think.
There could
So they actually can't charge rent for them. Is that the way that
Well, I
works?
think he's going to use all of his planning to charge.
Yeah.
rent.
Yeah, he's gonna
He's
charge.
renting them to his staff, he's
Yeah.
not giving them to.
No.
Right.
so for a municipality to regulate the user, to say that it's like in the pub, we have a housing agreement, and there's some units that we say they're for workers, I think it's like workers on Bowen, or people that don't go on a certain number of time, or something like that.
Well, definitely, I think that should be required as workers on Bowen. It's not for
Well, the only
people.
way we can do that, Kirsty, is with the housing agreement, and he's already said that he would.
But,
If the housing agreement was fairly civil,
yeah.
I don't think he'd
yeah.
have a problem
Yeah.
with it. If it gets too restrictive, then he's gonna balk. But if you just say, hey, the principle is you have staff in here in the summer and you can rent it out in the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
On staff or workers on Bowen, so.
Yeah,
if he
and I think that was
doesn't
said somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what we've done in the past, is we've said, okay, we don't really care, like for the pub, we don't really care if it's, they work at the pub, or they work at
No.
the Snug, or they work
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the,
Right.
Yeah.
right? It's 6 to 1, right?
go, yeah.
That's
You
pretty
can't
simple, I mean, you
stay there
can't
and
work
look
at that.
Tuscany, because we're in.
Yeah.
But you can't be commuting into Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's for workers who are based, their work is based at Bowen.
That may be problematic if there's a couple, and for instance, one of the
Right.
partners
Right.
is
Well, but
commuting
they
into a
do-
job
yeah.
downtown.
But if one of them that fits it.
Yeah.
At least one of them has to,
Yeah.
Well, is the housing agreement, Daniel, with the pub, with the new pub,
Yeah.
is it sort of applicable to what we're talking about here? Would it work nicely, and would it raise no objection from Rodney? Or would be considered simple enough as?
Rodney objected on principle,
I-
actually.
he always objects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so whether or not, I think, if it was just that, okay, this is what it's gonna regulate, it's not
Yeah.
requiring all this stuff, but it's saying, this is what you said you wanna do it for, and that,
And it would
Yeah.
and that this is just our assurance. I think he's more, I had a conversation with him sort of about, council needs assurance that you said you're gonna do this, but then they can say, okay, and
Yeah.
then that's what you did.
Yeah.
That's good, so,
To make it more palatable for him, can we say that it can be reviewed or not?
I think we always have some standard thing in there, right? It's like, how do you discharge it? Well,
Yeah.
council can agree to discharge it, they agree to put it on, they can agree to
Okay.
take it off, because, yeah.
Because if it becomes a point when he can't rent it to
Yeah, and it's
workers on
empty.
Bowen, and it's empty, then
Yeah.
he could come back to council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we need to have something that, yeah, for
So,
staff or other workers who base on whose work is based on Bowen Island. Like if they go off, if they're a landscaper here and they go 1 day a week to Vancouver, I don't think we're gonna say no, but it's,
Yeah.
so it's kind of interesting that, so what we're condoning short-term vacation rental in the off-season, and yet there's a kind of a blanket kind of thing throughout the island about short-term vacation rental
So he has commercial guest accommodation on his land
already.
based zoning.
Right.
So he has, I think, 2 of the cottages. He also rents some of the cottages in Davy's Orchard and the little building next to the pub as well as
Right.
commercial guest. So he has it in his zone.
for it.
He's zoned for it already on his land-based side.
So this component of it would fall under that.
Yeah, and I think the village commercial zone as well allows commercial guest accommodation.
Right.
So anybody in the code.
Okay, so
Right.
I missed something. Did you say that you think a housing agreement would be acceptable if we kept it simple?
I mean, I think it has
Yes. The answer is
potential,
yes.
yes. And I think as part of that is
So-
to say, this is what the APC felt as well, is that
Yeah.
this was required.
So
It's not
can I
just staff.
suggest in response to your question of whether we're supporting commercial guest accommodation through the winter, I think the answer would be yes, with the proviso that the proponent enters into a housing agreement ensuring that only Bowen Island workers are housed between the months of April and October.
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
That works out.
Yeah.
perfect.
That the APC supports commercial guest accommodation use in the winter with the proviso that for the months of April through October.
September.
September,
Well, according to the bylaw.
Yeah.
April through September.
Yeah.
The floating homes are used exclusively for,
Actually, I actually kind
No,
of
that the
reverse
proponent
it.
enter into a housing
no,
agreement.
I'm sorry, the proponent entered into a housing agreement ensuring that the accommodation is for the exclusive use of Bowen Island workers.
I would sort of reverse it by saying the base is that this is housing for Bowen Island workers.
And then,
Except though in the winter. it's
Except-
gonna be-
Yeah, I
However, units may be used for commercial guest accommodation from whatever it is, September to March.
October,
October to
March.
March.
Do we have sort of definitions for that?
For which?
Well, for a commercial guest.
Commercial guest accommodation,
workers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're fine.
But we don't.
In
for
terms of housing,
Bowen
I would
workers.
just use the hub language probably, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah,
but I mean, essentially pretty clear.
put those definitions in the housing agreement.
Yeah.
And that this be the subject of a housing agreement or something.
How's that read now?
Okay, so, okay. That the Advisory Planning Commission recommends that the proponent enter into a housing agreement with the assurance that the floating homes be used by Bowen workers from April to September. Am I going the right way?
Yeah.
And that the Advisory Planning Commission support the use of floating homes as commercial guest accommodation through the winter season.
Yes,
Okay.
the remaining winter season, just to be clear that it's
Okay.
which month it is.
Yeah.
The remaining winter season.
So,
I'll move that.
so
If
moved.
we haven't had
Dennis?
it moved yet.
Sorry, what was,
Do you have a second?
Dennis.
I'll second.
Dennis? Do you want to read that one more time, just for clarity for everyone?
sorry,
And
and who are
yourself?
we entering into an agreement with, is the municipality?
Municipality.
Yes.
Okay, that the APC recommended that the proponent enter into a housing agreement with the assurance that the floating homes are used by Bowen workers from April to September, and that the Advisory Planning Commission support the use of floating home buildings as commercial guest accommodation through the remaining winter season.
I liked exclusive use.
Which one?
That the proponent enter into a housing agreement stipulating that,
With the muni or not?
yeah, with the municipality stipulating that the units will be for the exclusive use of Bowen Island workers. hopefully that's friendly.
And then you've got the during those months.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Going on workers from April to September. And, okay, that the APC recommend that the proponent enter into a housing agreement with the municipality stipulating that the units will be for the exclusive use of Bowen workers from April to September. And that the APC support the use of the floating buildings as commercial guest accommodations through the remaining winter season.
Okay, do we need, is that April to September, is that clear enough?
beginning
Or
of
is it-
September, end of September,
No.
I think we should clarify that.
Well, yes, that's
And what-
one. Is it beginning of September, the end?
I would go April 1st to September 30th.
Yes.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah,
that's-
yeah,
11:59 PM.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Daniel, did you get these months from Rondi in terms of his business? I mean, I'm
I
just
didn't
using the
know,
months
I
that are
just-
in your bylaw.
No, I just used them as winter.
Okay,
I mean, I know his summer mortgage starts May 1st.
all right.
So
Well,
annually.
if he wants to extend that
Annually, so this is
a month on either end, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
Not for
Yeah.
much.
Except the summer or extend the winter?
Half in April?
Annually.
No, the other way.
No, yeah,
The other way would be allowed,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing he
Right.
can keep using.
Oh, that's
as
right,
guest.
yeah, of course.
I was saying
Yeah.
annually,
Yeah.
April 1st to April to September 30th.
yeah, I don't really have a problem whether it's April 1st or May 1st, but if he kicks up a huge fuss that the working doesn't start till May, but I
I think, did I just pick,
don't know.
because I wanted 6 months today?
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, I'd say that and,
yeah, it doesn't mean,
6 months.
Yeah, so I wanted a 6 month
6
spell.
months.
Yeah.
So can we have that one more time? Scott? No,
Wanna change something?
tweaked it and tweaked it.
No, the word.
That the PC recommends that the proponent enter in a housing agreement with the municipality stipulating that the units will be for the exclusive use of Bowen workers annually from April 1st to September 30th, and that the APC support the use of the floating buildings as commercial guest accommodation through the remaining winter season.
sounds good to me. Good.
All right, we have
Okay.
a mover and a seconder, all in favor?
Okay,
Unanimous. All right, so the third question again, Daniel had was regarding wastewater treatment. And the question, does the APC have comment on either the proposed wastewater treatment, on either the proposed wastewater treatment or on a potential affordable housing component of the application? Those are different things, affordable housing.
Yeah, so we can split.
I think we should have affordable wastewater treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone wants that. I have friends who just discovered they could update their system.
Yeah.
30G.
Yeah, let's deal with the wastewater, well, no, let's deal with the affordable housing component first, wastewater treatment is what it is. Do we want to stipulate any minimum affordable housing component in this application? Potentially 12 units?
Yeah, so when this went to council, question was, well, we have affordable housing policy, it says that there's a rezoning for 3 more units.
right.
That units, 15% of the floor area be protected as affordable housing,
So it'll be 1 unit. Yeah.
2, probably.
Yeah,
15%.
12
yeah.
units.
Yeah,
2 is 15%, yeah, I
Two.
guess so.
Is that-
Geez,
So that's one whole floating home.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then councilors talked about, well, maybe instead of that, maybe what's more appropriate is a cash in lieu contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. Talking to Rondi afterwards, he said, so I'm trying to build affordable housing and now you're gonna.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Basically, what he's doing is building all affordable housing.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, because his client, for at least 6 months, cannot afford
Yeah,
much
they're-
money. I mean, they're not paying
wage
much.
workers.
Yeah,
And they will be at affordable rates.
Yeah.
and they will be at affordable rates, and maybe he can make up some additional in the winter, renting out commercially.
But that's the thing, is in the off-season,
Yeah.
the rezoning is enabling him to make a profit.
That's right.
So,
If he
The
so
can-
that-
municipality is enabling profit.
Yeah.
well, all right,
Yeah.
enabling him to make the housing
Whether he
more
can or not.
affordable for his employees,
As long as he does.
yeah.
So
As
there
long
needs
as
to
he
be
does.
something in there that assures that the Bowen Island workers will be protected with affordable housing rent levels.
Well, if they can't afford to live there,
They
he'll
can't.
have empty
They
units
won't
and
have to
he'll
work
get
here.
no money.
Yeah.
Yeah, true
Because
that.
he can't put anybody else in there.
Mhm.
So,
They're affordable because you write the
So, but I
paychecks.
mean, it's an interesting point, because
Yeah.
the recommendation, the previous motion, would allow anyone who works on Bowen to rent there. So I could rent there, and I could afford it. Even if the rent's $500 a month, I can afford it. But,
So then it's affordable.
but somebody else might not be able to afford $500 a month.
Well,
So-
that's semantics. I mean, that's the age-old thing, but what is affordable?
I don't agree.
You know?
But the point being simply that, it could quickly become unaffordable housing.
Sure.
All 12 units.
But then again, if it's
Because
unaffordable,
people-
he can't rent them.
People, well, no, that's what I'm saying, that he can't. All he has to do is find 12 people on Bowen who can afford to
But
pay
isn't that
that
okay?
rent. Hmm?
Isn't that okay?
Well, that's the question. Do we want to be proponents for affordable housing? Do we want 2 of these units to be affordable units, and the rest of them he can charge the sky's the limit if he wants to charge it?
well, why not limit the, say, affordable housing, include affordable housing in the employee 6 months of the year? And our big problem is we have no agreed definition of
Yeah.
affordable housing.
Yeah, we use
Well,
metros,
that's-
eh,
yeah,
which is-
And that's hugely
ridiculous.
expensive.
Oh, yeah, it's 12, it'd be $12 or $1,500
Yeah,
a month.
so, yeah.
One stop on it would be, for instance, to require that this is not a secondary home for someone on Bowen. A lawyer friend of mine is looking for office space. This would be ideal for him,
Right.
right?
Not your friend anymore.
Right.
Or somebody wants a kind of a summer
Yeah, like,
getaway.
The marina,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they work on Bowen,
right.
so that's.
There's only one taxi, so if you want to go to the pub, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Well,
I
we can't solve that problem
No.
now, but we've got other mechanisms working on that issue. And I would say right now for this project, I think we've got it as buttoned up as we're gonna be able to get it for that.
So, I tend to agree with you, Dennis. I think this is worker housing.
Yeah.
That's the concept. We have done what we can to ensure that it will be worker housing, at least for part of the year. And if it attracts somebody other than people who are working in the shops and restaurants and co, that's unfortunate, but
What if we say service workers, as opposed to professionals and who might start, put a shop there or do.
you'd like to amend the previous motion, that's it,
No, let's just let's let it roll. Because I just think if we keep adding more and more and more and more, then we're just,
I'm not so sure. Randy pitched the whole idea to us based on it being housing for his employees who are
Yeah.
service workers.
Yeah.
So come on, it's kind of like, okay, then
but
let's
what if it's
make,
a service
let's
worker,
take
a
it for service.
landscaper,
Either this for
or
what
a
you
farm
requested.
That's
worker,
right.
or, what
Yeah.
is service worker?
Yeah. All of those.
All the above.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it does mean that, if you're a landscaper and you work on Bowen, you can't stay there. Or if you're a
See, and I think it should allow,
carpenter, you can't stay there because that's not considered to be a
That's
service
service.
worker.
see, that's why I think that we
So
want.
is there a definition for service worker that?
If you only
Probably
make
not
minimum
bylaw.
wage, you can stay there. If you go a tiny bit above minimum wage, you're out.
What
Not,
kind of money would we be looking at as a contribution? Just, what have we asked other people for?
Nobody's ever made a cash contribution
Mm-hmm.
for affordable housing.
So there's no.
Well, don't, they bought a unit from the pub.
So
Did he buy a
the
unit?
pub is providing
Or not the pub, the
two rental units.
copper
And the
facility.
distillery as well is providing a rental unit that's governed by a housing
I
agreement.
thought he bought one. Oh no, that was parking.
He bought a
Parking,
parking, yeah.
So
And
Daniel,
other people have contributed, like, to the community center, somebody did, or
Well, that'd be good.
like Evergreen did, or to the field. Evergreen needed a turf field a certain amount,
oh, right, that's true.
What are we talking, 10,000, 20,000?
something like that, a unit, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Arbutus Ridge development goes forward, I think it pays 500,000 towards the community center on a per unit basis, but
Awesome.
But those are market,
Yeah, those are market. I think this
yes,
is
this is
social housing here.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to make sure that it will be social housing.
Is there any way we can put a review on the housing agreement?
review.
Like once a year or once every couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be, I think that our standard form is like, that they submit the tenancy agreement
Okay.
to us. So it's supposed to be like for the pub, it would just be when they have a new tenant in, and then your
Oh,
tenancy
oh, that's-
tenancy
yeah, so
agreement, and this would be.
So that's
Yeah.
some level of control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, the APC could say, I guess, that's saying, okay, rather than getting 15% of the units be defined as affordable, we're getting all of them. Let's say they have to be for worker housing, maybe that's sufficient, maybe
Right,
that meets,
that's,
the- you
that's
know.
what I,
Yeah, I
that's-
think that.
Rather than getting caught up in rates, we're just saying, well, gee, they all are,
Yeah.
so we're okay as long as we have
Yeah.
that assurance, we have something on it that says
Yeah,
they're not just Airbnbs year round.
yeah.
Yeah, they're not year round, but
And they're not market in that he's
No.
not hosting them on.
well, that brings up another thing. Can he sublease?
No. No, he can't subdivide his
Okay,
lease even.
yeah, okay. that's
Can
true.
the tenants?
He can, but if
sublet?
he sell them and take them away.
Can you attend sublet? I guess that'd be governed by the housing agreement. Because I think that would defeat the purpose.
It would, potentially, because they could.
Yeah.
But if they sublet, then they also are gonna have to be,
They'll walk by him every day.
yeah.
Like, wait,
could you turn it into a strata? Their water strata?
I'd say no.
Well, it's all owned by one owner, so.
So I'm hearing that the commission's greater concern is that for worker housing, and that we feel that's been covered off in the previous motions. So then to the question of wastewater treatment, I can't remember what it was called, like green
Green.
life something, or
System, yeah.
system he was using.
I don't think it has anything to do with us personally.
I think we're covered. I just did a little bit of research.
It's Vancouver Coastal Health,
And they-
or whoever it is,
or
North
whether
Shore
they don't-
Health.
Right.
That we don't have any jurisdiction, even in the municipality, we don't have any jurisdiction over it, so I don't know why we're being in.
So currently our land use bylaw says float home use is permitted as accessory, blah, 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 subject to a permit connection to sewer pump out facilities for land-based sewage
Right.
disposal.
So what he's proposing is in contravention to that because it's not part of.
Because there's new,
Yeah.
and there's things that are changing and,
And it's probably true, like this was probably, I mean, this was the 2002 bylaw, I don't think it's been changed.
yeah.
It may have been in the Allen's Trust bylaw before that.
Right.
You could say unless his system is approved by
But, yeah.
Coastal
Yeah.
Health.
Well,
then-
but I think further though, that particular clause in the bylaw requires him to make that land connection.
Yeah,
It
so we want-
Irrespective of what Vancouver
Right.
Coastal Health may say.
That's
So we want-
And that's a different issue.
Yeah, we want to take that out, if coastal health has a better way to do it, if we don't plug up the snug coast sewage system with 12 more units, isn't that good?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, I think the recommendation would be that the bylaw be amended to remove the clause requiring a sewerage connection to the land if
alternate
BC, if Vancouver Coastal Health approves an alternative system.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Very simple.
the alternate system is covered in the float home standard, because they reference the sewerage system regulation
Yeah.
or connection to the municipal system. And the sewerage system regulation there's a link in the document, is the Public Health Act of British Columbia Sewerage System Regulation, which actually has a section on holding tanks. So it's all in the standard.
Holding tanks only to pump.
Or sewerage systems, including all professional involvement and certifications. So that's all
So we
seems
are,
to be covered.
yeah, so we're happy
Mhm.
to let it be excluded if.
If essentially it meets, so that's the BC
Yeah.
sewage
Yeah.
system complies with the sewage
Yeah.
system
Yeah.
regulation,
Yeah.
wastewater regulation.
Yeah, is it there?
So by saying, we said that in our first
BC,
motion.
yeah, that's correct.
And so by saying that, that takes care of that issue.
Mhm.
Does that take care of it for you?
I mean, it takes care of it, except, you know.
Except we
the
still
sense
got
that-
that regulation.
Bylaw.
But so this would, I mean, this would amend this, like the amending bylaw I have, right, would say you either connect to the permit, right, that we currently say, or
something
or
that's
you meet
certified.
this.
Yeah,
And so the
I-
APC's it's more the APC said, and you said, well, no, despite that, we want it to be connected to the permit.
No,
And actually,
no.
I want you to tell me that.
Okay. no.
I think the recommendation would be to follow these guidelines, so the further recommendation would be to amend the bylaw in accordance with, compliance with,
Yeah.
These
BC float home standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is that a motion? Steph?
There's a second.
Yeah, it's similar to the reference to the building code earlier.
Right. Yes.
So that the ABC recommend that the bylaw, I don't know what the bylaw is.
461.
Oh, this one, okay. Bylaw 461 be amended in accordance with compliance to BC float home standards. Compliance with.
Do you want to reference the sewage?
Including the Public Health Act sewerage system regulation.
Including-
Pass this along.
3.4.4.
Public Health Act, sewage system regulation.
Who does Randy's drawings?
Rodney?
Oh, is that? That's what I thought.
He was certified at one point. I don't know if he's in.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but he like has been an architect by trade or
Yeah.
training.
I've seen Michael.
I'd say
Oh,
to
really?
comply in
Sign it
accordance
off.
with compliance.
Yes.
To comply.
There's no name on board.
That's right.
Can we read it again? It does look, yeah, we got a little more.
Burp in there.
The ABC
Well, it
recommends
doesn't
bylaw
really
461
part
be
nine.
amended in accordance with
Well, I mean, that's his owner.
Yeah.
But he
BC
does.
float home
Yeah, it's on
standards.
crap page.
Public Health Act sewage.
To comply with.
regulations.
Rather
Comply
than-
with, that's
To comply with, yeah.
Yeah. Comply with BC float home standards, including the Public Health Act sewage system regulation.
Sewerage. It's actually.
Sewerage system
Yeah.
regulation.
Public Health Act, sewage system regulation, that's correct.
Why is one sewerage and one sewage?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, it is sewage is the correct,
Yeah.
I think.
The system, it's
But I
a
just
sewer,
use
it's a sewerage system, but
Yeah.
the product is
It's
sewage.
Ah, there you go. Noun or
And
magic.
this is de facto under the oversight of BC, or of Vancouver Coastal Health, is it? Okay.
Alright,
So
yeah, that's fine.
there's no need to state that, no. I'm just assuming that there's some oversight of some kind.
I think, wasn't that came up last time, that they checked the installation, but you guys were worried about there being any continued monitoring, and I was gonna monitor myself. Isn't that what happened
Yeah,
last
we
time?
talked about that. yeah.
That was-
Who's gonna be checking
Right,
later on?
right.
Well, Vancouver Coastal Health has no interest in checking, which I guess they don't on any septic
No, they
system
don't.
either.
They don't.
But they
So,
say it's okay.
So they define the authorized persons being professionals that they will rely on.
Mm.
so a professional designs it, and
Yeah.
that professional can require
Rate regime.
ongoing maintenance program and occasional,
Well,
well, or
monitoring.
inspection.
So that'd be Craig Regier, or,
Yeah, probably would be Craig, well, excuse me, Craig or somebody like him.
yeah.
Because they probably do have to be pumped out from time to time, like septic systems.
Yeah, I suspect it would be. If it's a fully sort of onboard treatment plant, which is what it is,
Yeah,
there's still a component to it which doesn't fully break
Yeah.
down. So.
And the system doesn't work anymore, I can tell you that.
Maintenance plan.
So, we have a motion then?
EPC recommend that bylaw 461 be amended to comply with the BC protocol standards, including the Public Health Act sewage system regulation.
Have a mover for that. Martin,
Yeah.
seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it.
David, all in favor? Again, all right. Let me check my agenda.
it's one more item.
That is it.
One more item.
What was there?
What?
Next meeting.
Put that in there.
Information excerpt from the minutes of the March 26th council meeting. community
Oh, that's just- yeah.
meeting. All right.
That was it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
So-
engagement.
Oh, I got an
Yes.
item.
Oh, you've got an item.
Volunteer appreciation event. Did you all
Right.
receive the email?
Yeah, sure did.
RSVP?
Yeah.
Good. Martin,
What
you
is
had your one meeting, now it's time to be appreciated.
Yeah, that's what. Now you get your
I
two
know
free
that-
drinks.
Um,
Two? Yeah, two.
We got
Crazy.
one last time.
I think I did have a conflict, but when was it?
June 14th, 7 to 9 p.m. Legion,
Yeah,
it's
so
Thursday.
So I'm a leader with the Bowen Island Beavers,
Oh,
and we're having our end of year thing there as well. So on that evening, so I don't think I can make it because it's from 6:30 till 8.
That's too bad.
last call.
Yeah, there you go.
18th is the next one.
14th.
So the other information, the other information
Oh,
piece
sorry.
is about the community lands, community engagement workshop, which has been whittled down from 2 days to 1,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is a good thing. David, you'll be attending,
Yeah.
and Dennis, you're not able to
I'm
attend.
not, and I talked to Kirsty, and she may or may not be able to, depending on
Okay,
circumstances, and I've talked to David Wrench, and he will attend.
oh, good, okay. Yeah, I'm not able to attend, as I mentioned to you. So are you familiar with this, Martin? So there was a joint meeting of the APC and the Mayor's Standing Committee on the community land. And the mayor, I think, was looking for some guidance in terms of how to proceed with the community lands, how to get input, how to, I think actually there was a hope that the APC would actually take a leadership role in effectively doing a planning exercise for the parcels to understand how the parcels would be used. And we've kind of modified that so that it will begin with a more of an invited kind of open house with people coming. There will be presentations, and a couple of people now I think are acting as facilitators. Chris Corrigan.
Chris Corrigan
Oh, good.
and Edward Walkman are
Right.
are facilitators, but there are, I mean, the only presentation really will be Daniel sort of explaining what these lands are, although everyone will be required to have done a little walk around so that they're familiar with the community
Right.
lands ahead of time. There's several nights when people can go and see them.
Daniel, do you know, or does anyone know, is there, because one of my concerns, I guess, is that I would like to see a planner involved in this process. And I don't know whether there's any
This is more, I
plan
would
to
say,
hire a planner.
I would say this is more about community visioning than
Right.
this is technical planning or
Yes.
anything like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yurts
Yeah.
and castles.
I understand that. It's just kind of a case of, you know, ultimately who's going to be steering
Yeah.
the ship here. I
Yeah.
guess is a bit of a question for me.
So I'd say say this is more, this is the step before that.
Yeah.
Does council have any broad policies regarding the community ones?
We have a handful of OCP policies,
Okay,
but they're pretty broad.
right.
I forget exactly what they go through, and I had to do a list recently, but it's like, one, it says affordable housing will be addressed when we
So
either on or when we sell.
affordable
Yeah.
housing, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
currently defined this week, is something that is supposed to occur on community lands.
I'm trying to remember if it is that or if it's like when they're sold.
Encouraging.
How's that process coming along?
Slowly.
There's some engagement with BC Housing to,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's,
and so typically there's an operator involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a proponent for that? or-
yeah,
So there's one.
conceivably.
There's
Um,
Birch.
Yeah.
Birch is one of them.
Yeah. Is there another one? Is there
Well-
somebody else interested in that?
Apparently Metro will do it,
Metro will do it?
yeah.
Wow.
They're sort of hot and cold, they do it, right?
Yeah.
And they will do it.
Do they have funds? Do they
No.
bring anything to the table?
No, God. But they will manage it. So,
So BC Housing has fairly, defined strict criteria. Most often, they will RFP it if they're financing the project.
mhm. Yeah, they're pretty pumped about the fact that it's free land and good land.
So, yeah, but, which land?
Well, we originally talked about a little piece, and they said we only need a half an acre. But we originally talked about a little piece between the community center and the Abbey Field there.
Right. Which is,
Darn, further down the
which
hill.
concerns me.
Well, it's further down the hill, either there or where the medical clinic's in the house, so it's
Yeah.
kind of.
That's one of the reasons for asking the question, because I have mixed feelings about whether I think that the municipality should be in the business of developing housing at all, or whether they should be developing guidelines and incentives for others to do so.
Correct.
Which I think is more.
Well, we wouldn't be involved in that.
More appropriate.
No.
Except for the land.
Well, I think this is a little bit unclear, and I think the second thing is about, so that ultimately goes to ownership
Mhm.
and how these projects are being delivered.
Mhm.
I don't think any thought's been given to ownership versus lease, long-term leases, rental.
That's
Some
typically what
has.
happens.
Some has.
It's only a
So
long-term
I'm
lease.
working on a
Long-term
shelter
lease.
project in Richmond right now, so the property is owned by the city of Richmond. And it's basically then financed, the project's financed by BC Housing.
Mhm.
And then there's a operator,
Yeah.
60-year arrangement.
Pretty
Unless they
standard.
mess up,
Yeah.
Salvation Army in that one.
So the operator is like a project manager, or?
Well, they run the place, so they have to have a pro forma, they have to
Yeah.
be able to show
Nonprofit.
that they can
It's a
run it
nonprofit.
at a nonprofit,
Yeah.
and, and each project is defined within the housing continuum, so they're at different levels. And therefore the rents are set at those rates that are appropriate for the community. And then, the operator has to show that they can actually maintain the building properly
Yeah.
and also provide the facility as housing to the target residents at the correct rental rates that are stipulated within that.
'Cause I was involved with a large co-op housing project in Falls Creek years ago, 130 units that we designed, and the contractor developer came in with BC Housing and worked together with them to
Mhm.
make that happen. And the land was provided by Lee Cushing. As part of his agreement with the city. I guess the other part of my concern is that the planning that's been done to date, in particular, I guess this is a little bit me wearing my other hat, but the community center is currently sitting somewhat in isolation, and the parcel that it's on. There is some visual and physical connection to Bix and to the soccer grounds and so on, But if housing goes in adjacent to the community center property, that will, in my view, create a huge discontinuity and will halt any potential future development related to the community center, and would halt any possibility for addressing parking, and would
Well, any
create
kind
a
of expansion.
potentially hazardous situation for children wanting to get from the school to the community center.
I think there would be a lot of outcry from the community if housing was placed next to the school.
Yeah, at the moment though, that's what's designated for. So
Yeah,
that's-
but I, you know, that has to be clarified at some point in time. I mean, we're gonna fight like hell to get all
Depends
that
what
land
level.
for the, what's called the community campus.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, right around the
So
school,
that's why-
right around the end to the.
yeah.
That's why I keep
really
bringing it
good.
up, because you know, I'd be very, I
There's-
would be, if the other process which is going on leads us down a road where it becomes absolute that that's housing on that property, which is currently designated for townhouses, I think that would be a travesty.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it needs to be that.
It doesn't have to be there.
Right.
There's lots of other
And
places.
the other part of that, and I mentioned it at that joint meeting, is that when looking at the properties, access to the properties has to be considered as well. And again, relating to the community center, we've got a driveway coming onto the land there. If that became a through road, it would change everything.
It's not gonna happen.
Right.
No.
Well,
Well,
I've
even
heard others, you know, sides to that story too, so.
Well,
Oh,
there's options.
I know there are options, Gary, and I really
You
like to
just
see
wanna
those options exercised, you
Yeah.
know,
But-
for
but
lots of reasons.
This,
Well,
yeah,
I
this,
agree.
but this event is not going to get into that level of detail.
I wonder.
Well, I just, you know, just going forward, I think there should be some kind of understanding that this land isn't available. I know you can't say it, but you could at some point during the presentation say, you know, this would be desirable land for the community campus.
Well,
Yeah.
I think as participants,
Mhm.
this is what you need to bring up at your table and
Yeah.
make those comments. That's exactly those kinds of comments that we're trying to pull out and talk about in these groups, and will be reflected in the maps and diagrams and drawing system.
Right. I mean, I understand that, you know, the affordable housing, whatever it may be, and whatever form it may take, is really a motherhood issue everywhere right now, particularly and as well here. But there's a lot of land, and I think there needs to be future thought to community-related facilities on community land as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
community lands, it's not affordable
Yeah.
housing land.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's Saturday the ninth?
The ninth, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the first
I
phase,
really-
the first phase of the day is actually looking at what are all the community, these are community lands, what are the community needs
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
Good. This is
use
good.
these
Yeah.
lands
Yeah.
for.
Yes.
So
Now
that's
and in
that's
the
phase
future.
one, and phase two is, okay, now we've seen all the lands, like, you know, what can go, Lego blocks go here and there. so.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, you're speaking for us.
So that was it. The next meeting
Yeah.
is scheduled for Monday, June 18th,
Yeah,
7 PM.
Is there something?
Unfortunately, David Lynch is not here, so we can't have a motion to adjourn. We'll just have to wait till. Do I have a motion to adjourn? David Hodges, second.
Yes.
Kirsty, all in favor?
Yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah.
are adjourned.